My family created a fake fund to steal my inheritance, but Grandma left me the one secret that destroyed their plan. It started with a text from my mother. Sunday. Family dinner. We need to discuss Grandma. No heart emoji. No please. Just that. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then typed, I'll be there. I should have said no. I hadn't sat at that table in years. Not since they called me ungrateful and shoved me out at 17 because my sister swore I'd stolen her prom money. But Grandma was the only person who ever defended me in that house. If this was about her, I owed it to her memory to show up. The place hadn't changed. Same squeaky gate, same porch light humming against a cloud of moths. Inside, the air smelled like roast chicken and lemon cleaner, home and hospital at the same time. My father nodded without standing. My mother did that thin-lipped smile she saves for company. My sister, Olivia, was radiant in a white sweater, like she was already auditioning for wedding photos. Her fiancé, Mason, wore a watch he couldn't afford and shook my hand like a politician that we did the script. Work is good. Yes, business is steady. Traffic was awful. Olivia asked whether my little apartment still had that quirky draft. Eyes flicking toward my jacket like she could see the life-eyed. Built stitched into the lining. I said nothing. The chicken was perfectly salted. I couldn't taste a bite. That my mother placed her fork down first. The cue. Your grandmother loved all of us, she began, voice covered in sugar. She wanted the family to be secure, especially the ones starting out. She touched Olivia's hand. The diamond flashed like a lighthouse. With the wedding coming up and other plans, we need everyone to be reasonable. I waited. Olivia didn't. Let's not drag this, she said, smiling too brightly. Grandma's assets are in the family fund now. It's the grown-up way to handle things. The fund will take care of the wedding deposit, the new place, and, future babies. She pinched Mason's arm. He did a shy grin. We just need you to sign your consent so the fund can reallocate your share. Temporarily. My fork hit the plate. Temporarily. Mason cleared his throat. You're single, he said, like a diagnosis. It's just math. You don't need as much space, or, what did the lawyer call it? Liquidity. My father folded his arms, pleased with the vocabulary. My mother folded hers too. You're doing fine on your own, she said. And Olivia has a real family to provide for. The room tilted. I looked from face to face and caught it, the quick glance Olivia exchanged with my mother. Something practiced. A line they'd rehearsed. You're alone, so what's yours should be ours. I swallowed. Grandma left a will, I said. I read it at the funeral home. There was no fund. Of course there is, Olivia said sweetly. It's updated. Legal. She slid a single sheet across the table, crisp and heavy with seals and signatures. My father tapped the page. Grown-up way, he echoed. You sign tonight, we handle the rest. I picked up the paper, and the world went needle-sharp. The fund claimed authority over every asset Grandma had. It said distributions would be at the trustees' discretion, my parents, and, there it was, Olivia. No mention of me as trustee. Just beneficiary subject to need. A line near the bottom made my skin crawl. In the event of a beneficiary's mental or emotional instability, trustees may withhold or redirect assets in the family's best interest. That I looked up slowly. Why is there a clause about instability? No one answered. Olivia took a careful sip of water. Mason adjusted his watch. My mother reached into a folder and produced a photocopy, my name at the top. A clinic letterhead I didn't recognize, and the words recurrent episodes of depressive dysfunction. Impaired judgment under stress. Dated last month. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Where did you get this? My mother didn't flinch. We worry about you, she said. You've always been sensitive. The fund protects everyone. Sign, and we'll keep things simple. Refuse, and the lawyer handles it. I set the paper down like it might bite. The old porch clock ticked in the silence. I thought of Grandma's hands, work-roughened, gentle, pressing a warm roll into mine when the house felt cold. She wouldn't have called this grown-up. She would have called it what it was. Then I want to see the original will, I said evenly. Not a copy, not an update. The one Grandma signed. And the trust deed that created this fund. Olivia's smile thinned. Don't make this ugly. It's already ugly, I said, pushing back my chair. And I'm not signing anything. As I reached the door, my father's voice followed me like a draft. You'll regret this, he said. Family remembers who helped and who didn't. I looked back once. Olivia had turned the paper so the signature line faced me, pen poised beside it like a lure. Mason wouldn't meet my eyes. My mother looked tired, almost bored, like this was housekeeping and I was the mess. Outside, the porch light hummed. The moths kept circling that I texted 2 people before I reached my car. Irene, the sharpest lawyer I knew, and Teresa, Grandma's oldest friend. Did Grandma ever talk about a fund? I asked Teresa. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then returned. Her answer landed as I started the engine. No fund. But she kept a key for you. Said you'd know when to use it. AKEYTO what? I checked my jacket pocket, a place my hands hadn't visited in years. Under the lining, sewn flat with invisible thread, exactly where Grandma taught me to hide mad money, my fingers found metal. Small, cold, ornate. A key. And if there was a key, there was a lock. Somewhere Grandma had left me a door, and these people were not invited inside. The key was small enough to lose and heavy enough to matter. I set it on my kitchen table and watched it catch the morning light. Antique brass, a clover-shaped bow, numbers etched along the shaft, 417. I took photos from every angle and sent them to Irene with a short message. Family says there's a fund. They waved a psych letter to force my consent. Also, Grandma left me this. She called within minutes. First, Irene said, brisk and calm, do not sign anything. Second, send me a copy of whatever they put in front of you in that medical letter. I'll check the fund's filings and the clinic. I heard her tapping keys. Third, 417 could be a safe deposit box. Did your grandmother bank at Union Harbor Savings? I froze. That's where she took me to open my first account. They had lollipops at the teller line. Grape. Nice. Take the key. Be polite. Ask if there's a box in your grandmother's name with you as an authorized user or successor. Let me know what they say while you're still there. Union Harbor still smelled like wax tile and old paper. A blue-suited manager listened as I explained who I was, then vanished into a back room with the key. The wait stretched. My palms sweated. When she returned, she carried a file and chose her words carefully. We do have a safe deposit box under Evelyn Carter, she said. You're listed as a successor by a durable instruction. We'll need to verify your ID and have you sign an access log. I'm sorry for your loss. Down a narrow hall, she led me to a tiny room with a table and 2 chairs. The box was longer than I expected, cool and stubborn when we slid it from the vault. When she left us alone, I laid the key in the lock. It turned with a neat little sigh, a sound like secrets making peace. Inside were 2 stacks, documents and keepsakes. I went for the papers first. An envelope labeled Original Will, Executed, lay on top, along with a notarized letter on Union Harbor letterhead. Beneath it, a trust deed, not for a family fund, but for an educational trust established when I turned 18, naming me as the sole beneficiary with strict limits on how funds could be used. No trustee named as Olivia. No clause about instability. My heart skittered. Then something odder, a manila folder titled Do Not Let Them Lie in my grandmother's tidy block print. Inside were photocopies of checks she'd written over the years, down payments, tuition, medical bills, and a ledger in her handwriting. She had recorded every gift to my parents for Olivia and marked entries with quiet fury. Mason's business debt, $3,000. Olivia's engagement party, $2,450. Mother requested temporary bridge twice, no repayment. On the last page she'd written, if they say you are unstable, show them what the truth looks like when it's written down. My eyes burned. I kept going. Tucked at the bottom was a sealed, notarized letter of intent addressed to any court or fiduciary reviewing the estate. In it, Grandma stated plainly that she had not created any family fund, that she expressly forbade her assets being used to satisfy third-party debts, and that any after-dated instruments contradicting these instructions should be presumed fraudulent unless proven otherwise. She'd anticipated the fight and written to the future like a witness who refused to be silenced. The keepsake stack hit just as hard. There was a photo of me at 7 in a paper crown, crumbs on my face, Grandma's hand on my shoulder. There was a thin silver chain with a tiny locket. Inside, a curl of my hair and a slip of paper with a post office box number. And there was a small audio recorder with a label, Play me only if they start lying. I set the recorder aside, tempted but cautious, then photographed every page, front and back, with timestamps. I texted Irene, original will, no family fund. Educational trust. Letter to court from grandma. Ledger of Olivia/Mason gifts. Audio device labeled for lies. Irene called immediately. Good, she said. Great, actually. Bring the will, trust deed, and the letter of intent straight to my office. Do not disclose the audio device yet. If it's admissible, we'll decide when to use it. Also, I checked your clinic letter. The header belongs to a real practice, but the doctor who signed it retired 2 years ago. Someone is playing copy and paste. I left the bank lighter and angrier, a strange combination that felt like permission. As I pushed open the glass doors, my phone buzzed. Teresa, your grandmother told me you'd figure this out, she said, her voice warm. She also told me Olivia's fiancé has been borrowing in town under different business names. If you want names, I have them. And I saw your mother at the pharmacy last week. She was copying documents on the self-serve machine, the kind with a scanner. Do you remember what they looked like? I asked. Signatures, she said. Stamps. A paragraph about fitness to manage property. She had a yellow highlighter. I stood on the steps, the city bright and busy around me, and felt the narrative shift. They expected me to be the kid who took what he was given. They expected me to be alone. But Grandma had left me a map. Irene had a torch. And Teresa had receipts. Back at my house, I laid the documents on the table and pressed record on my own phone, documenting everything. When I finally picked up the tiny audio recorder from the box and clicked play, Grandma's voice filled my kitchen, clear, steady, unafraid. If they are telling you that you're weak, she said, it's because they are afraid you are strong. I closed my eyes and listened until the message ended with a soft click. Then I called Olivia. I'm ready to meet, I said. Bring Mason. Bring the paperwork. And bring the lawyer you keep talking about. We're going to do this the grown-up way. Silence. Then her clipped reply. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. Mason's office. Perfect. Offices have printers and cameras. Mason's office sat on the second floor of a strip mall between a payday lender and a smoothie shop. A glass cube trying to look important. I arrived 10 minutes early with a portfolio case and a calm I didn't entirely feel. In the case, the original will, the education trust deed, Grandma's letter of intent, and a small spiral notebook for timestamps. In my shirt pocket, a pen that clicked on and recorded. Thank you, Irene. On my phone, a text draft to Irene that read play. If I hit send, she would call within seconds and step in from the coffee spot across the parking lot. Olivia swept in at 6 on the dot, heels loud in the hallway. Mason followed, jacket too tight across the shoulders, smile too wide. Behind them came a gray-haired man in a navy suit with a briefcase and a practiced air. Olivia gestured grandly. This is Mr. Harold Pike, our family counsel. The name hit me like a splash of cold water. Not because I knew a lawyer by that name, because I recognized the signature from the clinic letter. Dr. Harold S. Pike, the retired physician who had magically reappeared to diagnose me last month now wore a lawyer's tie that we shook hands. His grip was dry and papery. I consult on capacity matters, he said pleasantly, eyes scanning my face like I was a chart. Let's keep this civil. Mason closed the door, flicked on the conference room lights, and slid a folder across the table. The fund documents, he announced. The seals gleamed. The signatures, too, that I didn't sit. I opened my portfolio and laid down Grandma's original will, the one with the sea blue ribbon on the notary's seal. I placed the trust deed beside it, then her letter of intent on top, squared to the table's edge. Before we talk about your fund, I said, voice steady, we're going to acknowledge her documents. The ones with standing. The ones you don't get to rewrite. Olivia laughed without humor. Cute props. She turned to Pike. Explain to him why this isn't relevant. Pike set his briefcase on the table and clicked it open. It's relevant insofar as it predates a subsequent instrument, he said smoothly. Your grandmother later executed. He paused as he reached for a stamp pad in Mason's drawer, like they'd done this before. A comprehensive family trust. He slid their trust across to me. If you sign this joinder and the consent to trustee discretion, we can proceed with distributions. I flipped through their pages slowly, forcing them to sit in the silence. The paper smelled faintly of toner and fresh glue. The fonts shifted mid-paragraph. The notary block for the joinder was formatted in a way I'd only seen on free legal templates, and the part that made my jaw tighten, the witness line was blank. On the signature page was a familiar flourish. Harold S. Pike, MD, Capacity Consultant. My eyes went back to the header of the clinic letter Irene had checked. Same name, same swoop on the H. Dr. Pike, I said, keeping my tone mild. When did you decide to practice law? A beat. Olivia shot him a look. He smiled thinly. I consult for counsel. On capacity. Perfectly permissible to opine. He tapped the clinic letter in their packet. Your history suggests impaired judgment under stress. These are protective measures. I clicked my pen on. About that history, I said. The clinic that letterhead belongs to says you retired 2 years ago. Their administrator had never heard of a capacity evaluation in my name. Also, under our state law, capacity assessments aren't binding. They're evidence at best. And forged ones are crimes. I slid Grandma's letter of intent forward so the bold line faced him. No family fund exists. Any instrument purporting to create one is not mine. Mason puffed. You think a judge will take her letter over a real trust? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled a clear sleeve from my case, revealing bank access logs, Grandma's safe deposit entries, the durable instruction naming me as successor, the custodial signature card with Teresa as witness. Courts like originals, I said. They also like contemporaneous records and third-party witnesses, which I have. I set down my notebook, clicked my pen again, and asked, would you mind stating, for clarity, how this fund was created and by whom? Olivia bristled. By Grandma. With our attorney. Which attorney? I asked. Name. Bar number. We'll call them now. She hesitated. Mason's smile cracked. Pike cleared his throat. It was executed in a private home ceremony, he said, due to mobility issues. Where are the witnesses? I asked. Silence. Where is the notary journal entry? Silence again. I jotted the time, 6:18 p.m., and let the room feel the weight of it. Then I set out my last piece. A cheap USB microphone in a little fabric pouch. I placed it in the center of the table and didn't touch it. Olivia blinked. What is that? Nothing official, I said. Just so I don't misremember what we all say. I didn't say it was a decoy. The real recorder was humming in my pocket, a tiny green LED winking against my pulse. Pike leaned back, evaluating me with a new wariness. He pivoted. Look, Ethan, he said, switching to my name like we were old friends. This can be easy. Consent to temporary trustee discretion so your sister can proceed with her wedding and housing plans, and I will personally recommend we revisit allocations in 6 months. If you force litigation, we will file an emergency petition for guardianship citing your episodes and seek a temporary freeze on your accounts. The court won't love it, but it will buy time. Time favors the party in possession. I felt the old heat rise, the one they aimed for, the one that makes you say something you can't unsay. I let it crest and pass. Then I smiled just a little. Great, I said. Since we're being candid, let me be equally clear. I have the original will, the trust deed naming me sole beneficiary with narrow purpose, a bank's letter verifying custody, and a letter of intent to any court that calls your instrument fraud. I also have a witness ready to testify about who was photocopying signatures at the pharmacy last week. And one more thing. I pulled out my phone and hit send on the draft. It took Irene 3 rings to open the door and step inside like she owned the carpet. Hi, she said brightly, flashing a card. Irene Powell, counsel for Ethan. Please continue, preferably into this nice, clear microphone. Olivia's face went from porcelain to paper. Mason's went red. Pike's eyes cooled. We're done here, he said, standing. No, Irene said, shutting the door with her heel. We're actually just getting started. Dr. Pike, since you've signed a clinical evaluation and are now representing yourself as capacity counsel, please state which license you're acting under so I can note which board to notify about your dual roles. She slid a form across the table. And I'll need the original trust instrument, not a photocopy. Now, for a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Mason did something he shouldn't have. He reached for the drawer with the stamp. Irene was faster. She snapped a photo of the stamp plate as he yanked it open. Pike's seal and a generic notary embossing tool. You are kidding me, she said softly, delighted. Please keep that drawer open. A loud knock rattled the glass. Building security peered in, frowning, as if summoned by the tension alone. Pike smoothed his tie. "This is hostile," he said. "We'll reconvene with proper channels." He tried to gather their papers. Irene placed her hand on them. "No," she said, calm as gravity. "These stay. We're preserving evidence." Olivia's composure finally cracked. "This is my wedding," she hissed, voice shaking. "You don't get to ruin it." She turned on me. "Sign the consent, Ethan. Or I swear, tomorrow morning we file for guardianship. And we'll have you answering to a judge about every dollar you spend." I looked at the pen beside their signature line, the ink gleaming like a trap. I looked at Irene, at the camera in the ceiling, at the stamp in Mason's open drawer. Then I did the only thing that made sense that I reached for the audio recorder from Grandma's box, set it gently on the table, and pressed play. Her voice filled the room. Clear, steady, undeniable. "If they start lying," Grandma said, "remind them that truth is patient. It waits in the light." Olivia went still. Pike's jaw flexed. Mason swore under his breath. And somewhere in the hallway, I heard the elevator ding, someone else arriving. The elevator chimed, and the glass door eased open. A woman in a navy blazer stepped in with a leather folio and a compact embossing case. "Charlotte Reeves, Notary Public," she said, flashing her commission card toward the ceiling camera. "Here at counsel's request to verify any originals." Her tone was blandly professional, but her eyes were sharp. Irene gave a small nod that said, "Checkmate," politely. Charlotte set a blue mat on the conference table. "If you contend this family fund was duly executed, please produce the original trust instrument and the notary's journal entry," she said. "Photocopies aren't sufficient." Pike's pleasant mask tightened. "The originals are off-site," he said. "Of course," Charlotte replied. "Then we'll flag this packet as unverified and proceed accordingly." She clicked a pen, ready to log chain of custody that I slid Grandma Evelyn Carter's original will, the education trust deed, and her letter of intent onto the mat. Charlotte examined seals, checked notary IDs against her reference list, and nodded. "These are authentic." She stamped her verification slip and handed Irene a copy. Mason shifted in his chair, eyes cutting to the drawer with the rubber stamp and generic embosser. Charlotte followed his gaze, then looked back to Pike. "Counsel, whose notarial tool is that?" Pike didn't answer. Olivia did. "It's just a prop," she said too quickly. Irene's phone vibrated. She tapped the screen and angled it so I could read the preview. "Clinic admin confirms Pike retired in 2023. No capacity eval for Ethan on file." Irene slid the phone face down. "Doctor," she said, sweet as a scalpel, "you've represented yourself as a capacity consultant and facilitated execution of a trust. Which bar are you admitted to? We'll need your number for the complaint." Pike's silence wasn't the answer he thought it was. That I leaned forward. "Let's keep this simple," I said. "Produce your originals. Name the drafting attorney. Or admit this is toner and bravado." Mason bristled. "You can't talk to us like." He stopped as Charlotte snapped a quick photo. Date stamp, desk layout, open drawer, stamp plate. "Preservation record," she murmured. "In case anything disappears." Olivia's composure cracked. "This is about my wedding," she hissed. "You always ruin everything." "Mom said." She bit it back, but the words had momentum. "Mom said the pharmacy scans came out clean and no one checks witness lines anyway." The room went still. Charlotte's pen hovered. Irene's brows lifted. "Pharmacy scans?" She repeated. Olivia flushed, then glared at Pike. "You told us it was fine," she said, voice shaking. "You said as long as the stamp shows, the court won't squint." Before Pike could scold her, a brisk knock rattled the glass. Building security had returned, with a uniformed deputy and a plainclothes process server. "Ethan Carter?" the server asked. I stood. "You've been served," he said, handing 2 packets. One addressed to me, one to Olivia Carter, Mason Hale, and Harold S. Pike. The deputy cleared his throat. "And per Judge Alvarez's order, I'm here to observe immediate preservation of any documents purporting to affect the Evelyn Carter estate, along with any notary tools present on the premises." Pike recovered fast. "On what grounds?" The deputy tapped the header page of my packet. Irene was already reading. "Temporary restraining order," she summarized, voice ringing. "Effective now. Enjoins any transfer, alteration, or destruction of estate-related documents. compels production of originals at 10 a.m. tomorrow, sets a hearing in 48 hours, authorizes a forensic document examiner, and issues a spoliation warning. She looked up. Congratulations, everyone. We're on the clock. Mason lunged for the drawer. The deputy's hand landed on the handle first. Open, please, he said, and Mason obeyed. Charlotte photographed the plate and the embossing tool from 3 angles, then sealed them in a clear evidence bag with a numbered sticker. Chain of custody initiated, she said. Pike tried a new tack. We'll produce at our office, he said smoothly. Irene smiled without warmth. Great. And we'll bring the examiner and the clinic's administrator who says your letterhead is being misused. Olivia folded her arms tight, looking everywhere but at me. Under her breath, too low for the deputy but not for my recorder, she whispered, Mom's going to freak when she hears they want the journal. My pen didn't pause. Journal? I asked. Olivia blinked, caught. What journal? Irene pressed, gentle and deadly. Olivia's chin lifted. The notary journal, she said, louder than she meant to. Mom kept it too. Double-check dates. Pike's head snapped toward her. Olivia, he warned. Too late. Charlotte finished her note with a tidy flourish. The deputy sealed the drawer and stapled an inventory to Pike's folder. You can leave with what's listed, he said, but the stamp and embosser stay bagged until the judge says otherwise. Mason swore under his breath. Irene gathered our verified originals, slid them into her folio, and stood. We'll see you at 10, she said. Bring your witness list. And, Dr. Pike, bring a clean explanation for why your MD is moonlighting as a rubber stamp. As we reached the door, my phone buzzed again. Teresa, got the pharmacy manager. Security footage shows your mother scanning papers last Tuesday for 12 p.m. He'll cooperate. I exhaled, half relief, half fury. Irene read over my shoulder and nodded once. That's our exhibit, she said, along with Ms. Reeves's chain of custody and Deputy Hayes's inventory. We stepped into the hall. Through the glass, I watched Olivia snatch up her purse with trembling hands. Mason was already on his phone, whispering hard. Pike stared at the evidence bag like it had personally insulted him. I pressed my palm to the recorder in my pocket, felt the steady blink against my thumb, and finally let myself smile. They had expected me to break. Instead, I'd brought light and time. The two things lies hate most. My screen lit up one more time. Unknown number. I answered a man's voice, low and careful. Is this Ethan? My name is Daniel Briggs. I represent the Union Harbor Estate Services Unit. We have activity on a dormant file for Evelyn Carter that doesn't match what you were shown. You should see this before tomorrow's hearing. The line clicked. A calendar invite appeared, 7:30 a.m., Union Harbor, Records Room, B. Across the glass. Olivia finally met my eyes. She looked worried for the first time. Union Harbor was barely awake at 7:30 a.m., just the thrum of the vault fans and the soft squeak of a janitor's cart. Daniel Briggs met me in a records room that smelled like dust and toner. He wore the look of a man who preferred rules to people and slid a gray archival box onto the table with both hands. Mr. Carter, he said, tapping a log sheet. Your grandmother maintained a secondary estate file labeled contingencies. It's separate from the safe deposit box you accessed. The bank's internal trigger fired when we scanned activity tied to an estate fund that doesn't match what's on record. He broke the seal on the box. Inside was a slim, red envelope with open only if contested, embossed in gold. My pulse pounded. Daniel gloved up, passed me the envelope, and watched as I slid it open. 3 items slid out. A codicil, a notarized amendment to Grandma Evelyn Carter's will dated 16 months ago, reaffirming the education trust and adding a clear in terrorum, no contest, clause. Any beneficiary who initiates or assists in an action to reallocate assets contrary to the terms herein shall forfeit their distribution to the scholarship reserve. A fraud. Protocol letter addressed to Union Harbor Estate Services and any court of competent jurisdiction. It instructed the bank to preserve and disclose all estate-related records if a family fund appeared, and authorized release of video footage from lobby copiers or external sites if forgery is suspected. A certified copy of a notary journal page, Charlotte Reeves's, showing Grandma's codicil execution with 2 witnesses, Teresa Ward and Miles Benton, a retired teacher. Time-stamped. ID numbers noted. Clean as glass. Daniel folded his hands. We're releasing these under the protocol. We will also send the court our own affidavit that the bank holds no instrument titled Family Fund executed by Ms. Carter. He hesitated. There's one more thing. He set down a visitor log from last Tuesday. Olivia Carter had visited the branch for copy services. The note column read, assisted with enlarging signature blocks. Customer declined scanning help. The timestamp was 4:12p.m.my phone buzzed. Irene, subpoenas served. Pharmacy manager will testify plus send surveillance clip. Clinic admin ready. Forensic doc examiner en route to court. A second text followed. A photo still from the pharmacy camera. My mother at the self-serve scanner with a sheaf of papers and a yellow highlighter. The top page showed a seal. Smeared. Daniel closed the archive box. You should get moving, he said. Judge Alvarez doesn't love tardiness. He handed me a banker's envelope. Chain of custody initiated. By 9:50, Irene and I were seated in a small conference room off the courtroom, our table buried in tabs and flags. The forensic document examiner, a calm woman named Dr. Lila Chun, arrived with a rolling case and a loop hanging on a lanyard. Let me see their trust, she said, businesslike. Irene slid the packet over to Dr. Chin's eyebrow arched before she even sat. Mixed fonts within a single paragraph, she murmured. Times New Roman, then Calibri, then back again. That happens when someone pastes text from different templates. She angled the paper under a portable raking light. See this halo around the signature? Ink sits on toner. The pen line rides on top of a printed image. That's classic print then trace or paste in. She flipped to the notary block. And this commission number? It belongs to a notary who expired last year, but your instrument is dated this spring. Also, this seal design, she snapped a photo, was phased out by the Secretary of State in 2022. Anachronistic hardware. I couldn't help it. I smiled. Irene wasn't done. She opened our folio like a magician, showing there's nothing up her sleeves. Your Honor will also see, she rehearsed. A codicil with Ms. Reeves's authenticated journal entry, Union Harbor's archive affidavit, and a no-contest clause that converts any challenger's share to a scholarship reserve. She tapped the bold line. Meaning, if Olivia or anyone else fueled this family fund stunt, they don't just lose, they forfeit. At 10 o'clock sharp, the bailiff called us in. Judge Alvarez read the TRO, then motioned for statements. Opposite us, Olivia, Mason, and Dr. Harold Pike had the tight, sleepless look of people discovering gravity. Their new attorney tried to buy time. We request a continuance, he began. Judge Alvarez held up a hand. You were ordered to bring originals. Did you? They had not. Irene stood, focused and surgical. She walked the court through the original will, education trust, letter of intent, codicil, and the bank's archive protocol, placing each exhibit with a satisfying thud. Dr. Chin followed, coolly pointing to printer banding, toner gloss under pen strokes, a misaligned notary seal, and a witness line left blank. 2 rows back, Teresa Ward lifted a hand when her name was called and confirmed the codicil ceremony, IDs and all. Then came the clips. The pharmacy video showed my mother feeding pages into the scanner, pausing to highlight a paragraph about fitness to manage property. The timestamp punched like a stamp. The courtroom went very quiet. Judge Alvarez turned to Pike. Doctor, or counsel, whatever capacity you claim today, did you create or supervise this document titled Family Fund? Pike spoke too quickly. I offered capacity guidance. I did not notarize. Under whose commission did you affix a seal? The judge asked mildly. Pike hesitated. Mason stared straight ahead. Olivia stared at the table. Irene delivered the last brick. Your Honor, we also have a Union Harbor visitor log placing Ms. Olivia Carter at the bank's copy station at 4:12 p.m. last Tuesday, enlarging signature blocks, and a preservation inventory bagging an unauthorized stamp found in Mr. Hale's desk last night. She let the words settle. We move to extend the restraining order, appoint a special fiduciary for the estate, and refer the matter for criminal investigation. Olivia finally looked up, desperation edging her voice. It was my wedding, she said. We just needed a little help. Ethan doesn't even. The judge's gaze stopped her. Ms. Carter, a little help is not an excuse for forgery, undue influence, or fraud upon the court. Across from me, My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she hadn't needed until the cameras rolled. Judge Alvarez rapped the bench once. Temporary restraining order extended. All purported family fund instruments are to be surrendered to the court by 5 p.m. today. Dr. Chun is appointed as the court's examiner. The sheriff will execute a limited search for notarial tools referenced in last night's inventory if they are not voluntarily produced. Hearing on sanctions and the no contest clause set for Friday at 9 a.m. I strongly suggest counsel advise clients about the consequences of continuing this course. We filed out into the hallway hum. Irene exhaled for the first time all morning. That's the spine, she said. Now we add ribs. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I stepped aside and answered a quiet male voice. Ethan, my name is Miles Benton. I was a witness when your grandmother signed her codicil. Your mother came to my house last night asking me to correct the date in my memory. She left $100 under my teacup. I thought you should know. I thanked him, promised a ride to court, and hung up. Across the hall, Olivia and Mason huddled with their lawyer. Pike stood alone, staring at his hands like they were evidence that Irene's phone chimed. She showed me the screen. Charlotte Reeves had just texted a photo, a page from my mother's personal notary journal. The ink was fresh enough to glisten. It recorded a home execution of the family fund 2 months ago with Olivia as a witness, under a maiden name she hadn't used since college. A date that didn't match her driver's license. A commission number that didn't exist that I looked at Irene. She nodded once. That, she said, is how lies don't just crack, they collapse. I didn't reply, because behind her, through the glass, I saw Mason on his phone, walking fast toward the exit, toward the parking lot, toward the trunk of his car, where, last night, the deputy hadn't checked. Irene followed my eyes. Do not move, she said calmly, already dialing. Let the bailiff do his job. The bailiff's radio squawked. 2 deputies peeled off down the corridor, and as the door swung open to daylight, Mason lifted the trunk lid on something wrapped in canvas and metal, not a gun, a notary embosser and a portable stamp kit. Caught in the sun, the deputies reached Mason before he could shut the trunk. Sunlight flashed off metal, an embosser, 2 rubber stamps, a bottle of quick-dry ink, and a zip pouch of blank notary certificates you could buy online if you didn't care about the law. One deputy photographed everything in place. The other read, Mason his rights to the extent required for property seizure. Mason blustered about props and demos, but the canvas wrap had a smear of fresh black ink that matched the halo Dr. Chin showed the judge 20 minutes earlier. Inside, Irene filed an emergency add-on to the TRO, and Judge Alvarez granted it from chambers, expanded preservation. No contact with witnesses, no creation or destruction of estate documents, and surrender of any stamping or embossing devices within county limits by 5 p.m. We were winning the hour, maybe the day. I allowed myself 3 minutes of breathing. That's when my phone lit up. Mom, I shouldn't have answered. I did. Ethan, she began, breathless. This is going too far. The deputies, the judge. Your sister is falling apart. In the background, I heard Olivia crying, or pretending to. Come by the house. We can fix this before anyone goes to jail. We'll unwind the fund and... She paused, like the words had weights. And we'll put your name as a trustee. Equal with Olivia. That's fair. You forged a medical letter about me, I said quietly. You tried to steal from Grandma's will. Her voice sharpened. We did what we had to do. You never understood family pressure. It isn't stealing if it stays in the family. She dropped her voice. Please. Your father wanted peace, not courtrooms. I have a version of the fund that's cleaner. No clinic letter. No capacity language. We can print it at home, drive it to Pike, and print it at home. I repeated, silence, too long. Then a brittle laugh. I mean, review at home. Don't twist my words. I'm trying to offer you a way out. If you keep dragging strangers into this, the DA will sniff around everything, including that little cash business you had in high school. Do you want them finding those texts? She was bluffing. My little cash business had been mowing lawns and repairing bikes, but I felt the old childhood reflex, the one that made me apologize for breathing too loud. I swallowed it whole. If you have a clean document, I said, bring it to court with your notary journal. We'll all take a look. Her veneer cracked. Don't be smug, Ethan. You're not better than us. Then the softer weapon. Come home. I'll make coffee. We'll fix it. Your grandmother would hate this spectacle. Grandma wrote a codicil to stop exactly this spectacle, I said. And by the way, the pharmacy manager kept the footage. I could hear her inhale. You ungrateful, she caught herself. Think about Olivia's wedding. Do you want to be the reason it's ruined? I'm not the reason, I said, and ended the call before I could say anything kinder or worse. Irene watched my face and didn't ask. Instead, she slid a yellow legal pad toward me. Write down exactly what she offered, she said. Dates, words, anything that smelled like leverage. I wrote. At the bottom I added, printed at home, admission of fresh drafts. Irene underlined it twice, by mid-afternoon. The sheriff's office had inventoried 3 more stamping devices from Pike's Capacity Consulting suite and tagged a laser printer at Olivia's condo. The pharmacy manager delivered the footage in a sworn statement. Teresa brought coffee and 3 pens that all wrote the way pens should in court. Bold. Permanent. Unforgiving. At 4:41 p.m. We received a calendar ping. Sanctions hearing accelerated to Thursday. 8 a.m. Judge Alvarez's notes were terse. Willful misconduct suspected. No contest enforcement on deck. Criminal referral under review. Irene exhaled, then turned to me. They're cornered, she said. They'll try one of 2 plays tonight. Destroy or deal. My phone buzzed at 6:03. Unknown number. I almost let it die. Then curiosity bit. Ethan? A male voice, younger than I expected, careful and earnest. This is Miles Benton's nephew, Caleb. My uncle asked me to call if anything weird happened. Your mother came back an hour ago. She brought cookies and a memory worksheet for him to redate his signature. I told her to leave. She said if he testified wrong, she'd make sure the church heard about his habits. He hasn't had a drink in 8 years. Is he safe? I asked. I'm with him now, Caleb said. But a white SUV has driven past the house 3 times. I signaled to Irene. She was already dialing the bailiff. Stay inside, I told Caleb. Lock the door. A deputy is on the way. The weight of it all pressed in. The brazen fraud, the lazy cruelty. I went outside to breathe, watched the courthouse lights snap from gold to white as the sun slid down. My phone rang again. Olivia. Her voice was small, wrecked. He's going to charge us, she whispered. Pike says if we cooperate, maybe it stays civil. Mom won't listen. Mason thinks he can fix it, but he can't fix anything. I can't sleep. I keep seeing Grandma's handwriting. A long, shaky inhale. What do you want from me, Ethan? The question stunned me, because it was the first honest one she'd asked in years. Tell the truth, I said. All of it. Tomorrow. Bring the pharmacy receipt. Bring the drafts. Bring Pike's emails. If you do that, I'll ask the court to spare you from the worst sanctions. Not your share, that's not mine to give. But I'll stand up and tell the judge you helped when it mattered. She was crying. And if I don't, then you lose twice, I said. In court and in whatever's left of your life. I hate you, she said. And then, I hate that you're right. The line went dead that I returned to the conference room and found Irene packing our exhibits with the neatness of someone who'd learned long ago that order is a weapon. Go home, she said. Eat. Sleep. We meet at 7. If they call, don't reply unless it's to say email my attorney. I left the courthouse with the sky bruising purple. At a red light near my street, a dark SUV idled beside me, the same shape Caleb had described. My shoulders tensed. The driver didn't look over. When the light changed, he turned away to AT home. I set Grandma's recorder on the mantel and pressed play until the house filled with her voice again. Truth is patient, she reminded me. It waits in the light. Maria texted a picture of takeout and a heart. I ate half, showered, set out my suit and exhibits like talismans. At 11:12 p.m., my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Mason. Alone. Hands visible. Eyes jittery. I didn't open it. Leave, I said through the door. He swallowed. I brought something. For you. For the judge. He lifted a manila envelope to the door camera. On the flap, in blue marker, Pike's emails plus drafts. Irene's rule flickered in my head. I called her on speaker. She answered on the first ring. He's here, I said. Envelope. Do not open it, she said. Tell him to set it on the mat and step back. I'm calling the night bailiff to witness intake. I followed her script. Mason obeyed, hands shaking. Please, he whispered through the wood. I can't go to jail. Olivia can't. Your mom said, stop talking, I said. and stop coming to my house at midnight. The hallway light snapped on, two deputies rounding the corner. Mason flinched as they approached. They logged the envelope into evidence, snapped photos, took a quick statement, and walked him to the curb. He kept looking back at the door like something inside might save him. When they were gone, I locked the deadbolt, leaned my forehead against the wood, and let the adrenaline burn off in slow, stubborn waves. My phone buzzed one last time, an email notification from a name I didn't recognize. Harold.pike.consult at. Subject line: Draft, Family Trust, Final. Attached, 6 PDFs. I forwarded it to Irene and killed the screen. The house was very quiet, and then, from the mantel, Grandma's recorder clicked and whirred. As if finding the end of the tape, IT stopped on her last line. One I hadn't heard before because I'd always ended the message early. Ethan, if they corner you, look in the back panel of my cedar chest. There's something they're afraid you'll find. I stared at the recorder, skin prickling. The cedar chest sat at the foot of my bed. I had never noticed a panel. The cedar chest had been in my bedroom since I was 9. A gift from Grandma that smelled like winter and soap. I dragged it into the light, ran my fingers along the back panel, and felt a lip I'd never noticed. A gentle pull. The panel slid free with a soft sigh. Inside, a flat parcel wrapped in brown paper and string. I unknotted it and spread the contents on the bed. Printed emails between Harold Pike and Mason discussing signature placement, image, resolution for seals, and capacity language that won't spook a judge. Receipts in Mason's name for online stamp kits and blank notary certificates. A second letter to court from Grandma, dated the same week as the codicil, clarifying how the no contest clause should be read and explicitly warning against any instrument titled Family Fund. At the bottom lay a Polaroid, Grandma at Union Harbor, hand on the red open only if contested envelope. Smiling like she'd solved a puzzle none of us could see. I scanned it all, emailed Irene, and tried to sleep. I couldn't. At 3 a.m., Olivia texted, "I'll tell the truth. Please ask the judge not to destroy me." At 3:02, Mason says not to flip. I can't live like this. I typed one reply, "Bring everything." Morning came harsh and bright. I in the hallway outside court. Mason wouldn't look at me. Pike did, and for a heartbeat I saw it. The moment a grifter realizes the scaffolding won't hold. Inside, Judge Alvarez called the sanctions hearing to order that we started with the paper. Dr. Lila Chun traced the toner halos and misaligned seals. Charlotte Reeves authenticated the codicil in her journal. Union Harbor filed its affidavit and handed up the visitor log. Then the screen lit with pharmacy footage. My mother at the copier, highlighter flashing. When Olivia took the stand, her first 3 answers were rehearsed. The fourth wasn't. Irene asked, "Who created the family fund document?" Olivia looked at the clock, then at me. "We did," she said, voice breaking. "Mason and Dr. Pike drafted it. Mom and I copied it." "I'm sorry," Pike's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Irene submitted the emails from the cedar chest. Pike went pale. Mason clenched his jaw until it trembled. Judge Alvarez's tone turned granite. "Miss Carter, your candor arrives late, but arrives nonetheless. Under the codicil's in terrorem clause, the court finds a willful attempt to reallocate assets. The clause is triggered. Your distributive share converts to the scholarship reserve." Olivia let out a sound like air leaving a room. She nodded, tears slicking her face, and didn't argue. The judge turned to Pike. "Dr. Pike, the court refers you to the district attorney for investigation into forgery, unauthorized practice of law, and fraud upon the court. To Mason, the sheriff will expand evidence seizure. You are noticed for obstruction and tampering." My mother stood without being recognized. "He's our son," she said to the room, a plea and an accusation. "This is a family matter." The judge's gavel snapped once. "Sit down, ma'am. Your family made it a court matter." I stood and cleared my throat. "Your Honor," I said, shocking myself. "I asked the court to consider leniency for Olivia contingent on her full cooperation, emails, drafts, everything. Not for her share, that's Grandma's clause. For charging decisions." I glanced at Olivia. She told the truth. A long pause. Then the judge noted, "Miss Carter, your cooperation will be documented." The gavel fell again. Sanctions set. Referrals made. We'd won. On paper. Outside, Olivia reached for me and stopped. I don't expect forgiveness, she whispered. I just didn't know how to be anyone else. I nodded. Start now. In the days that followed, the machinery of justice did what it does, slow, loud, and inevitable. Pike was booked, posted bond, and did the walk of someone who'd misjudged a decade. Mason signed an agreement to cooperate. The sheriff's inventory from his trunk and office filled 6 pages that a special fiduciary took over Grandma's estate. The court expanded the scholarship reserve that would carry Evelyn Carter's name longer than any of us that I visited Olivia on a gray afternoon. Her apartment was half-packed, wedding board in the trash, dress bag folded like a surrender flag. I'm moving in with a friend, she said. I'm going to pay back what I can. I'm going to therapy. She laughed a little, not unkindly. Capacity, right? We sat on the floor. I can't fix what the clause did, I said. But I can tell the DA you helped. And I will. She nodded. Mom hates you for this, she said matter of fact. She says you killed tradition. I thought of the copier footage, the yellow highlighter. Some traditions should die, I said. That night, my mother called. I let it ring out. She left a voicemail in the voice she used when I was 10 and late for dinner. Brisk, wounded, sure. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. I played Grandma's recorder instead. Truth is patient, she said. It waits in the light. The light had found us. What we did with it was ours to own. Before bed, I stood in the doorway of my house, one I had fought for, one I had almost lost, and decided how my life would sound from now on. Not bitter, not naive, boundaried. I wrote a letter to the DA, recommend leniency for Olivia, none for Pike. Judge Mason by his cooperation, not his panicked eye in the morning, Irene texted. Final hearing set for Friday. Bring yourself. Bring words. Words I had. The right ones? I wasn't sure. The courtroom was quieter for the final hearing. No crowd, no whispers. Just the hum of the vents and the weight of what comes after a storm. Judge Alvarez confirmed the orders. My deed stands. The family fund is void. The no contest clause diverts Olivia's share to the Evelyn Carter Scholarship Reserve. Referrals proceed. The fiduciary nodded, notes neat as stitches. The judge asked if anyone wished to speak. I stood. I grew up in a house where love was conditional and truth was negotiable. I said, palms damp, voice steady. My grandmother taught me a different math. You don't steal to prove you belong. You build so no one can throw you out again. My family tried to take what I built and lie about who I am. The court stopped that. Thank you. I am angry. I won't pretend I'm not. But I will not carry that anger into every room of my life. I'm asking the court to note Olivia's cooperation, which helped expose the scheme. I'm not asking you to undo Grandma's clause. That's hers, and I honor it. I'm asking for a chance for my sister to start honest. As for the rest, Dr. Pike made choices. Mason made choices. My mother made choices. So did I. I turned slightly, met Olivia's red-rimmed eyes, then the judge's. Justice isn't vengeance. It's a light. My grandmother taught me that too. The judge inclined her head. Spoken with clarity, she said. So ordered. When it was over, we filed out. Olivia stood near the door, clutching a tissue. I'll pay it forward, she said, voice hoarse. Not to you. To someone who needs it. I said, that counts. Mason didn't look up as deputies guided him toward a side hall. Pike avoided my eyes entirely. I in the corridor. My phone buzzed one last time. Teresa. Swing by, she wrote. I have something of your grandmother's. I drove over in a light rain, the kind that makes the world feel newly washed. Teresa handed me a small envelope with my name in Grandma's tidy block print that I opened it at my kitchen table, the same place where the key had glinted in the morning sun. Inside was a photo of 9-year-old me sitting on the cedar chest and a note. Ethan, if you're reading this, you did the thing I feared most and hoped for anyway. You told the truth out loud. Keep this house if it keeps your heart soft. Let it go if it makes it hard. Family can be chosen. Light can be tended. I loved you first. Grandma. I pressed the note flat and breathed until the ache turned gentle. Irene texted a single emoji. And then, scholarship board meets next week. Want to chair it? I wrote back, yes. Later, as twilight pooled in the corners, I stood in my doorway again, listening to the quiet. The house didn't feel like a prize anymore. It felt like a promise, to build without stealing, to forgive without forgetting, to love without surrendering the ground under my feet that I turned off the porch light. Moths scattered, night folded in, and somewhere I could almost hear Grandma's laugh, a small, true bell in a room that finally belonged to me. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story that we post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.